An organization in Ocala is starting Breast Cancer Awareness Month with music, dance, and lots of outfit changes. TV 20's Emma DeLamo shows us how a fashion show helps some models embrace their past.
12 fearless women are walking down the runway, while others are a little more into dance. They're participating in the Celebration of Survivors fashion show hosted by All About You Angels in Ocala. The organization supports women diagnosed with breast cancer. Each of the models represents a month in next year's calendar. All of the models are featured in this calendar. Guests got to take one home after watching the fashion show. Candy Hill went on stage alongside someone special. She battled stage 4 breast cancer at the same time her grandson was diagnosed with leukemia.
Well, the experience was a blast, especially having my grandson with me. It made it even more special. He really is my hero.
Organizers wanted to make survivors feel comfortable in their skin again.
And I thought, what other way to make people feel good about themselves was to put them up on a stage in front of people, to have them clapping and cheering for them and having them feel like, you know what, it is about me and I'm beautiful again.
The money raised from the event will help past and current patients.
This helps the organization to gain that money to be able to donate back to the community when they need to.
In fact, the group is being recognized for their caring nature. The Florida Breast Cancer Foundation awarded a $10,000 grant to All About You Angels. They're providing gift cards to women fighting breast cancer in order to help them with other expenses, like gas and groceries. The crowd was up on their feet, singing, dancing, and supporting their favorite ladies. Reporting in Ocala, Emma DeLamo, TV 20 News.